Alright YouTube, what is happening? We got a pretty special knife to review today. I was lucky enough, I'm just going to zoom in so you can look at this beaut. I was lucky enough to win the lottery for one of the Gareth Shamwaris. This is his latest variation with the boomerang carbon fiber, orange peeled titanium handle scales, or liners I guess. It's a run-on bearings, M390 blade steel. So pretty much, I always wanted to check one of these out. I had one Gareth Bull knife before. It was an older model of his, and it was like quite a bit smaller. And I wasn't terribly impressed with that knife. It wasn't a Shamwari though. It was like I said, an older model. Got in a trade, had some issues, so I actually sent it back to the person I traded with. But the Shamwaris get really glowing reviews, and so I wanted to check one out. Shares a lot of design aspects with another South African origin, well, actually made in the U.S., but owner was South African. You'll see here in a second. But let's go over the packaging and stuff real quick, just kind of talk about how it's presented, because it's a pretty expensive knife, so it should be presented. It comes in this nice little plastic case with the Gareth Bull knives patch, and then it's shipped. It was very well packaged, so nothing would happen to it. It came from DHL. Got here pretty quick from South Africa, so that is one thing to consider, is you are buying a knife that is made out of the U.S. So we'll get into that in a minute. But I want to talk about my first impressions when I got this thing. I was just absolutely blown away. It's just gorgeous. It's an absolutely beautiful knife. This boomerang carbon fiber is very unique, and I think it's amazing. It looks awesome. The orange pilled titanium liners are a great touch. Love the hybrid clip. He calls it a hybrid clip. It's a titanium clip, but it's also got a little spring to it. And it is deep carry. The knife has a blue titanium standoff as well. And like I said, it runs on bearings. It's incredibly smooth action. It's not quite Grinsmo Norseman action, but pretty close. Pretty close. It's a front flipper. You can use your thumb. I think that's the best way to do it. You can also use your middle finger, but the detent on this one's a little stronger, so it's a little more difficult to do that. Again, nice high hollow grind on the blade. Let's just appreciate some knife porn right now. Beautiful high hollow grind, beautiful swedge, nice crown spine. Just a gorgeous looking blade. Nice satin, like a hand rubbed satin finish on this, I believe. Just beautiful. There's a look at the liners. The lock doesn't have a lock bar insert or anything like that, but it has zero stick. What do you know? You're gonna learn something from Chris Reeve. Just a gorgeous knife overall, guys. This is the 3.3 inch version, so it's a 3.3 inch blade of M390 steel. The handle length is about 4¼ inches overall. Let's compare it to the Benchmade Bug Out. I think is the most comparable knife I have as size. It's almost identical in size. So if you like the size of the Bug Out, it's like almost nearly the same. Similar blade shape as well. Here is next to the small Sebenza, which I think it takes. This is the Insingo, but if this was a drop point small, you'd be looking at those two knives like, well, those are very similar. So it's a little bit bigger than the small Sebenza. And the Hinderer 3-inch, I think, is very, very similar as well. Yeah, almost the same size as a 3-inch Hinderer, so a little bit more blade on the Shamwari. So, beautiful knife. One more comparison, just because I got it, and it's one of my favorites. The Riyat Baby Machine is very, very similar as well. Very similar size knives. So right in my wheelhouse, almost like the perfect size for me, right? So my first impressions have been, it's incredible. It's got amazing action. The handle is very neutral. Has a nice cutout right here for your finger. The ergonomics are freaking fantastic. It feels super comfortable in the hand no matter what way you hold it. It's just got great ergonomics. Nothing crazy, but very good. Now it takes a lot of design cues, especially on the handle. Look at these two knives. Look at that cutout. Tell me that's not the same as that Sebenza. Pretty much it has exactly the same handle cutout right here as the Sebenza does, which works really well. This is a Sebenza 21. Hasn't changed much over the many years, so the Nkosi is a little different, but it's a different model. So you can see kind of somewhere, and then the handle shapes are very similar. You can see there's definitely some design elements borrowed from the line of the Sebenza line of knives, which, you know, Chris Sebenza is South African, and so is Gareth Bull, so not a surprise there. But, you know, this is definitely unique from a Sebenza because of the front flipping action, the bearings, M390 blade steel, not S35. That carbon fiber, he does a lot of different finishes. He does just plain titanium frame locks. He does these overlays with carbon fiber. He even did some of my car recently. He has a field grade Shamwari. Tons of options out there. Tons and tons of options. The only issue with these knives is that they're incredibly hard to get. Like, there was 7 of these available. And everyone on Instagram, he doesn't want Instagram, and he says, hey, I'm putting up a lottery this time, enter. I happened to be on Instagram when the thing went live. I commented in. Didn't think I was going to win. There was hundreds of people, I believe, commenting, and I was one of the lucky 7. So I said, you know what? We're going to get one for the channel, take a look at it, review it, see how, you know, what I think about it. So I think it's an amazing knife, and I think the design is absolutely almost like a perfect EDC knife. If you watched Dr. Frunke, he did a review on this, and he called these EDC perfection, the Shamwaris, and I had to have to agree with him. They really are perfect EDC knives. There is nothing that you wouldn't be able to do with this knife, but it also is very classy. It's a nice gentleman's carry, especially these carbon fiber ones. I mean, I could see this being a gentleman's carry knife for someone. It's what he uses his for. And I'd have to agree with him. They are literally the perfect size, perfect blade shape. You know, everything about them is just great for EDC. The question, or the issue that I have, not with the knife, well, I guess it's really the price point. Now, you're stepping into a custom knife. This is not a production knife. This is custom. And for me, I've got into customs for a while, and I got out. And the reason why is because I never could bring myself to use them because they were so expensive and they were so nice. Now, I know they're a tool. They're designed to be used. And, you know, but will this $700 knife, $100 knife, cut better than this $114 Benchmade? No, it really won't. Yeah, granted, it has better materials. All that aside, it's not a production versus custom. That's not the discussion I want to get into. But it's just very expensive. I mean, even at the $700, which honestly is what these sold for, the secondary market on these closer to $1,000. Very similar to like a Grimsmo Norseman, where they first came out. They were like $500, $600, $700. Now they're over $1,000 easy. You're not going to find one under that. So that's something to consider when you're looking at this. The difficulty of achieving this knife is one thing that kind of would hold a lot of people off. The country of origin, nothing wrong. They make some amazing knives in South Africa. It's the warranty return. If you have to send this back, you're shipping it back to South Africa. There's no U.S. retailer. There's nothing that you're going to, you know, if there's any issues with this really expensive knife, you're going to be without it for quite a while. Something to consider as well. I think that's common with a lot of custom knives, though. A lot of knives, even if they're in the U.S., they have a long turnaround time to get knives back to you because they're one-man shop typically, and they don't have, you know, major production going on, so they can't get it back to you quickly. So it's something to consider. So if you're into custom knives, you absolutely need to get yourself a Shamwari. If you haven't already got one or had a chance to handle one, it's an absolutely amazing knife, amazing design, fit and finish is fantastic, just fantastic, just an awesome knife. For me, I'm at that same point where I was before. I thought I'd give it a try. It's on the lower end of custom knives. It's not, you know, these crazy $1,000, $2,000 plus knives. You know, it's not that expensive compared to those. But see, what I do is I compare them to the knives that I absolutely love and use constantly, like the Hinderer knives, made here in the United States. Rick Hinderer is, you know, a name that everyone knows. Chris Reeve Sebenzas, same, high-end production. These are the highest end of the production you're going to get. Riot. I would say these 3 knives are my most carried knives. Actually, you know what? The Bug Out is one of my most carried knives, especially because it's a lightweight. And this is not high-end production. This is what I would consider just regular production knife. These are definitely high-end. So are you getting way more out of your money with this Shamwari than you are out of these knives? You're really not. You know, you could say, oh, the action's incredible. It's not going to be on the Sebenza and the Hinderer. You're right, because they're really not meant to be like that. But this Riot is one of the smoothest knives I've ever had. It's incredibly smooth. And it's not drop shut, guillotine smooth like this can be, but it can be, and they've made knives like that, you know. But material-wise, you're very similar, especially with like this 20 CV Hinderer. You have the same blade steel, you have titanium. I mean, you don't have carbon fiber, that would be a little bit more. I've put a custom micarta scale on mine. You know, with the Sabenzas, you're paying a little bit more for S35 than you would be on a lot of knives, but the fit and finish is impeccable and better than anything out there, really, in the production world. So, you know, that's where, for me, I have a hard time using this expensive of a knife, this nice of a knife, when I can spend hundreds of dollars less and use one of these knives. Now, I'm not opposed to using, I mean, all three of these, this Hinderer, this Sabenza, and this Riot, you can see. I mean, you can see the use marks maybe on the Riot at the time. All are in my EDC rotation. All get used regularly, and I'm not afraid to. And they're expensive. They're not cheap. They're not, even this, some people wouldn't consider this Benchmade cheap. But I'll still use them. I'll still, you know, put them to its paces. I'll still sharpen them and all those kind of things. I have a hard time at that price point. To me, there's not as much gap from here. You know, these price points are very, very similar in the $300 to $400 range to the $700 plus range. I don't see the extra worth there. It's not there for me. It is for some other people. This is just my opinion. Some people are definitely not going to agree with this. That's okay. Just speaking how it is my channel. I can do that. So, do I think it's worth it? To me, no, it's not. It's incredible knife, beautiful, awesome. Nothing negative to say about the knife or the design or the maker. Yeah. But yeah, for me, it's just too much. Like, it's a little too high end. It's a beautiful knife. It won't get carried. It won't get used. It'll sit in my house and it'll sit in my knife drawer, and I'll flip it and play with it in the house, but I'll be like too scared to take it out and use it or to lose it, or, you know what I mean? It's just kind of how I am with this knife. So it's incredibly, you know, beautiful knife. I'm glad I had the chance to handle one to you know, actually hasn't been used at all, but to handle, to, you know, get a feel for a Gareth Bull Shamwari. But for me, it's just too on the high end of things. I don't see the return of investment being, now obviously the return of investment's higher because the resales on these things is incredible. But as far as like you know, is it really worth that much more than this Riot knife? No, it's not. Not in my opinion. It's really not. Same with this, you know, the Sabenzas. And some people would even say, well, the Sabenzas aren't worth more than a Kaiser S35 knife. You know, I disagree on that, but you know, that's what we have opinions. You know, I've been in the knife world community for, geez, 6 years, 5-6 years at least, if not more, and handled hundreds of knives, and just have come to this conclusion that this is my sweet spot. These guys are where I like to be at, and they're not cheap. They're expensive knives. From the standard Joe, you're not going to spend that kind of money. But the Shamwari here is on a whole other level, money-wise. So, but it's just not there to me. This is my sweet spot. This is where I like to live. You know, even some lesser expensive knives like the Bug Out. But, you know, this is for me where it's at. And I'm sure a lot of people will disagree, but that's okay. The Shamwari, and don't take anything negative away from this, it's just not, to me, worth the money. But if it was in the $450 range, you know, I think they used to be. The Shamwaris used to be that cost. This one might have been a little more because of the carbon fiber being so nice. I would probably be way more, if it was that price, I would say yes, absolutely. But where it's at now, even, I know that $700 is not a lot for custom guys. I get it. To me, it's just too much. So, that's my final thoughts on the Gareth Bull Shamwari. I've already had people emailing me to buy it. You know, I know it was definitely not a risk involved in getting this knife, because the resale is incredible. They're very hard to get. So take that for what it's worth. Thanks for watching this video, guys, and we'll see you on the next one.